Cretella. Andrew has actually gone through this manual before, but he's redoing Competent Communicator Manual in speech number 10, Inspire Your Audience. It's 8 to 10 minutes. It's stories about people I've known and lessons I've learned. It's the little things. And
when I was in my 20s, I used to go to these all-night clubs in Manhattan. And on one such occasion, as the night came to a close, I met this woman named Alex. As the sun came up, we drove to the beach. When we got to the beach, we met several people, but the most interesting was Victoria. She was this childlike creature, always laughing, always smiling. We hit it off right away. As a matter of fact, we soon started kissing. Now, we were getting into it when Alex turned around and saw this. She said to me, "Hey, you're with me." In a rare moment of spontaneity, I said, "What? She's my sister." Alex said, "I saw what you were doing." And I said, "She's my sister, we're like that." Alex was completely confused, but Victoria thought it was hilarious. Needless to say, I never saw Alex again, but I saw a lot of Victoria. A lot. Now, over time, we started to grow apart, and it was around this time that Victoria started complaining about her health. She spoke to her doctor, who put her in a hospital for a series of grueling tests, and I was there for her every day. The diagnosis was Hodgkin's disease, cancer of the lymph nodes. Vicky was put on a strict regimen, including chemotherapy, but she got better, she got healthier, she got strong, she got well. Now, over time, I didn't see much of Victoria, but I had heard that she was completely well, and she was even engaged to be married. But then one night, I got a call. She had passed away. Needless to say, I found this deeply disturbing. It was not just, well, I had never had an experience with somebody so young dying. But it wasn't just that she was young. She was younger than her years. Vicky was like a child. She was like my cousin Annie. When I was growing up, my cousin Annie always looked 15 to me. Whenever I saw her, I'd see her maybe twice a year, and whenever I saw her, her face would light up and greet me with this amazing smile. It was like she smiled with her whole face. It was such a rare and pleasant thing. I think I discovered the Beatles with Annie. When she got old enough, she drove to my house in Brooklyn, and she asked me if I knew where she could get some marijuana. I didn't want to disappoint her, so I shared what I had. Now, as I got older, I didn't see Annie for a while, but the next time I saw her, she had a husband and children. Little Annie with a husband and children. And then one night I got a call. Annie had gone to sleep with a headache and never got up. We were devastated. Me, my family, my extended family, her father. And once again, it wasn't just that she was young. She was younger than her years. She was like a child. And so I had these uncomfortable emotions. Regret, remorse, even guilt. With Vicky, I wish I had been more kind to her when she was around. With Annie, I never realized she was my favorite cousin. And I never got to tell her that. Now, I like to think that I learned from my past, but sometimes I think that I'm way too slow on the uptake. Some of you may know, I didn't grow up with my parents. I grew up with my aunt and uncle. They had two children, John and Steve. They were my cousins, but they were like my brothers. You might say we had this love-hate relationship. They love to annoy me, and I hate being annoyed. Now, when we were moving to San Diego, my wife and I were working overtime. We had all these details to handle to move the family 3,000 miles. We had all this stuff we had accumulated that we had to shed. We had to either sell it, give it away, or pack it up. So we were working so hard, it felt like 24/7. We didn't get much sleep. We had no help. When we finally got here, I felt we could relax. And then I got a call from John. He said, "You know, Steve is very upset with you. He was hurt." I said, "What did I do?" He said, "It wasn't what you did, it's what you didn't do. you didn't say goodbye to him. Now, in my defense, I went out of my way to make a copy of an audio recording his father made when he was overseas in World War II. And I put it in Steve's mailbox before I left. But I didn't say goodbye to him, so I felt guilty. I called him up, I got a recording, I left a message. No response. When it was his birthday, I called him up, left a message, no response. When the holidays came around, I made copies of television programs he used to watch when he was growing up and I mailed it to him. No response. This went on for several years. And then one day John called me up and he told me that Steve had died. I couldn't believe it. How did this happen? So he tells me, well, he was very ill for a long time. He didn't want anybody to know. And I'm thinking, how could that be? So while John's talking, in my mind I'm thinking, I got to pack, make plane reservations. So I said, John, when's the funeral? And he said, last week. Last week? He said, well, Steve's wife didn't want you there. Now, I've heard a lot of horror stories about families, but I never heard of anything like this. So I'm left with these uncomfortable feelings, this sense of incompletion, remorse, regret, guilt, things done or not done, things said or not said. And what do we do with this emotional baggage carried around with us? So I'm thinking, how do I turn this around and make it something more positive I can bring forward with me? And this is what I came up with. Take no one for granted. Acknowledge and appreciate those around you every day. Now, when I leave the house in the morning, I don't want to leave without kissing, hugging, or at least touching my wife, my son, even my dog. I turned to my wife recently and I said, do I let you know how much I appreciate you? And she said several times a day. Now, I'm sure she's exaggerating, but she's being kind and gracious. That's why I married her. And that's part of what I learned from her. Be kind and gracious. It takes nothing. It costs nothing. And yet it enriches both the giver and the receiver. You see, I'm not here to inspire you to do great big things. What I like to do is inspire you to do the little things, the human things, to acknowledge and appreciate those around you every day. Not just on anniversaries or birthdays, but every day. In the family, the extended family, even the family like we have here. For example, I was leaving the meeting one day and I stopped someone who shall remain nameless on the way to her car, and I said to her, Bertha, I gotta tell you, it is such a pleasure when I'm up here trying to give a speech to see your face smiling back at me. I think I've said the same thing to Leslie or Melissa. On another occasion, we had a member who shall remain nameless, who told us he wanted to be an Ironman. And then he gave us a speech where he inspired everyone in the room. When the meeting was over, I went up to him and I said, you know, Kevin, you are an Ironman. Now, I know these are little things, but these are the human things. And that's the message I'd like to leave with you today. Take no one for granted. Be kind and gracious. Acknowledge and appreciate those around you. I know these are the little things, but they're the human things. And as such, these are the things that matter.